Hello and welcome to Reports with Claude. My name's Jeff, I'm glad you're here. Let's just jump right in. By the end of this short video, you'll see how we can use the Claude add-in to help us quickly generate first drafts of our reports. It's pretty insane. Let's jump straight into Excel. Exercise 1. So the first step is to install the Claude add-in. If you haven't already done so, just head to add-ins and search for Claude. Once it's installed, we can open Claude. Now this does require a Claude account. So then you log in. And once you're logged in, you can start prompting Claude in the side panel, and it'll take action in our workbook. Now, before we do the prompt, let's just get our bearings. We have two data tabs. One is called data and one is called budget. The data tab contains actuals. This tab has columns like transaction date, department, expense category, vendor, description, payment method, amount, and you get the idea. The budget tab has budget values for department, expense category, and then the annual budget for 2 years. So let's just get warmed up with something easy. Let's have it build a pivot style summary showing total spending by department with columns for the expense categories. I'm going to copy this prompt and paste and go. And I'll speed this up. Now basically as it was working, it was giving me updates in this right-hand panel. Okay, so it fully documents what it did. Now let me close this so we can see what we have here. So we have departments. Okay, it's well formatted. It uses here the SUMIFS function, which if I was building a formula report like this, I would also use the SUMIFS function. And then it gives us this grand total column and the total. Okay, now I feel like that with AI, I don't really just trust these results. So we could spot check it. So the first thing I would do to spot check it is I would start with the grand total. And I would want to make sure that the grand total on our data ties to the grand total of this report. So I'm going to say, add a tieout to compute the total per data tab and compare to total per report so I can confirm they agree. And I'll speed this up. Okay, and it gave us this tieout, and this does use a formula so I can confirm that's the total of the data. This uses a cell reference for the report, and then it computes the difference, and it gives me conditional formatting for if it's tied. I used to have to do this manually. Oh my goodness. All right, this is cool. This is cool. And also the formatting looks pretty good too. Now, let's see if in addition to a formula-based report, it can actually create a pivot table report for us. So I'm going to say I want a pivot table, not a formula-based report. And I'll speed this up. Okay, and here it finishes up. So again, we could go through and we could read all of these updates, but I'm just going to close this for now. And let's check out our pivot table. Sure enough, it inserted department into the rows layout area, expense category into the columns layout area, and sum of amount into the values layout area. And then it also remembered we wanted our tieout. Once again, this ties to the data tab. This ties to our pivot table report. It computes the difference and it gives us some conditional formatting if it ties out. Okay, you know, in Excel, there are many different ways to accomplish any given task, right? And so I wouldn't expect the AI to do it the exact same way that I would do it, because sometimes it might suggest VLOOKUP, whereas I might use XLOOKUP. But in this particular case, if I was going to create a formula-based report, I would have used the SUMIFS function. And if I was going to create a pivot table report, this is the layout that I would do. And for my initial tieout, this is exactly what I would do too. All right, so I would say so far so good. Let's go to the next exercise, exercise 2. Now, let's throw a little curveball at it. To create a budget versus actual comparison by department, it actually needs to grab values from two different tabs. It needs to go to the data tab to get the actuals. It needs to go to the budget tab to get the budget values. And it needs to rely on matching the department and expense category columns. So let's see how it works. I'm going to copy my prompt, which is create a budget versus actual comparison by department, add columns for budget, variance, and variance percent, flag any category where actual spending exceeds budget by more than 10%. Let's open Claude, let's paste the prompt, and let's go. And I'll speed this up. Okay, and then it finished up. So let me go ahead and close this. And let me change these column widths so they're all a little bit easier to see on one page here. Okay, so we have department expense category, actual spend and budget from the 2031 column. And let's scroll down to the bottom. And the total here is 6099600. And the budget is 2031. Now let me show you something. Let's cruise over to budget and zoom in. And so you can see we have a 2030 and a 2031 column for the budget. And let's check out data. Okay, so here we have 2030 transactions. And if I scroll all the way down, I also have 2031. So let's cruise up and check out amount. This is really small at the bottom, but I can see that the total of this column is 6099599. That's for all years. And that total is consistent with this report as well. Here, however, I have budget 2031 comparing against 2 years worth of data. So I can confirm it's using SUMIFS to add up the budget D column. So that's the budget D column, that's 2031. And for actual, it's adding the data I column. And the data I column is our total amount. So it's comparing 2 years worth of data against 1 year's worth of budget. So let's have it fix it. Let's bring back Claude. And I'm going to say your actual value is for 2 years, 2030 and 2031, but your budget is 2031. Fix this, and I'll tell it what I want. What I want is, I only want to see 2031. Go. And I'll speed this up. Okay, and it finished up. And by the way, this is exactly the reason why I don't blindly trust AI. You know what I mean? It's like, great, get us a first draft way faster than I could come up with a first draft, but I will be spot checking all of this work, even though if you read the side panel, it tries to double check its own work. In any event, let's see how this looks. My total 2031 budget is 6158. If I go to the budget and I grab the total of this, it's hard to see, but down here I see 6158. So that looks good. And the total on my report is 2901. And let's see how it updated its formula. So it basically said add up the amount column, but only include those rows where the department is equal to our department, where the expense category is equal to our expense category, and where column B is 2031. So we cruise over here, and it's going to only grab those here that are flagged with 2031. So that feels reasonable, but I would definitely do some additional spot checking. In fact, why don't we just do this? Tie out. Give me a tie out for actual data 2030 and 2031 that agrees to the data total. Then compare 2031 actual total to this budget analysis total. Go. And I'll speed this up. Okay, and it finished up. So let's scroll down. Okay, and here's our tie out. We have total from data, all rows, 6099. We know that's correct. 2030, 2031, and then the sum of it, and it ties out. So that makes me feel a lot more confident. Budget analysis, 2031, 2031, and that agrees to this. So that looks good. And then budget from budget sheet 6158, 2031 budget 6158, and these formulas also look about right. So, firstly, we don't blindly trust the AI. We spot check it ourselves and have it help us with some error checks. And second of all, what if we don't love this report? Well, let's have it change it. Maybe I just want to see the expense categories and how we're doing as a company overall. So I'm going to say change this and remove departments. I just want to see the expense categories. Also, I want to type in a year, and the formulas should retrieve the correct year's data. Go. And I'll speed this up. Okay, and now it finished up. So it just redid everything. So let me close this and let's kind of take a look. Okay, so we just have the expense category, actual, budget, variance, variance percent, and flag, marketing. Interesting. And let's cruise down here, and it remembered to rebuild all these tie outs. So here it's using formulas, so it's all dynamic, and this looks legit. And now let's change the year. I want to go with 2030. Enter. Okay, and I saw all these formulas update. I have a total of 3197 compared to my budget. And by the way, I know these randomly generated numbers don't seem realistic, but it would be awesome if we came in like $2 million below budget, right? But anyways, these were just randomly generated numbers. And then this tie-out updates accordingly. So I really like the way that this tie-out here is presented. Cool. All right. Well, first of all, I'm glad we spot checked it. But once we refined our prompt, I think we're in good shape now. Let's go to the next exercise. Exercise 3. Okay. Finally, I want to prepare a one-page management report that includes a department spending summary, top 10 vendors by total spend, quarterly spending trend by department, and a budget utilization summary, formatted for executive review. That sounds wild, right? I know. Let me go ahead and copy this prompt, open up Claude, paste, and go. And I'll speed this up. Okay, and now it's finished. So let me close this so we can kind of take a look. Okay, so we have, and let me zoom this down a little bit so we can get our bearings here. Okay, so this is for 2 years, 2030 to 2031. Okay, then it has it broken down by department, total spend and total budget, and that's a 2-year budget. It's got the variance and status. Then I have the top 10 vendors by spend, and so it brought in these values, and then it also decided to use a little conditional formatting. That's pretty creative. That's cool. Okay, then 3, quarterly spend. So it's got its quarterly columns. That looks decent, although we have some column width problems here. But if I just take the totals, it should tie out to 609,9600, which it does. 4, budget utilization and year-over-year trend. Again, with some conditional formatting, that looks nice. Scroll down. I don't love this chart, but it tried. So it's got quarterly spending by department and then top 10 vendors by total spend. And we didn't even really ask it for a chart format. It just kind of threw those in, I guess, as a bonus. So whatever, they're easy to delete. So this is a solid first draft. Of course, I would want to spot check it, and I would reposition some of this stuff and get these column widths all dialed in. But before we leave, let's cruise back over to exercise 1. This is a total for both years. What if I wanted to be able to select a single year? Well, let's open Claude and let's say exercise 1. This PT is for all time periods. Let me pick a year. Go. And I'll speed this up. Okay, now it's asking me, hey, I have several different approaches I could do. Which one do you want? A year input cell, a drop-down selector, keep pivot table with slicer. That's the one I want. All right, and I'll speed this up. Okay, now it finished up, and it gave me a summary of what it did. So let's close this, and let's take a look. So we have a slicer, and let me just move this up here, and let's do this. And let's cruise over here. Okay, so now let me pick 2030. So I pick 2030, and I get 3197, and let's cruise back over here, and that agrees to here, 3197. So that feels good, and 2031 is 2901. Let's cruise back over here, 2031, 2901. So I feel like this pivot table is operating as expected. Now the tie out, however, this is just getting the total. It's not filtering it based on year. So that's why we're getting these differences. Now let's just have it fix this tie out. The tie out shows total data. When I apply a slicer, it shows an error. Fix this. And I'll speed this up. Okay, and it finished up. So let's take a look here. 2901, that looks good. Let's go to 2030, and this looks good as well. Okay, perfect. So that is how we can get our initial first draft developed very quickly with Claude AI. Hopefully this has been helpful. Thanks for joining me. Have a great day. Hey Excel user, if you ever need to create summary reports, check out my Pivot Table for Beginners video. It starts at the beginning and shows how to store the data transactions in a table and then how to summarize those transactions with a pivot table report. I hope it helps unlock the incredible power of pivot tables.
This video is a production of Excel University.